Welcome to EHNE, the neutral newscast station, where we pick no sides but your side. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 1945. It has been 6 years since September 1st, 1939, the start of yet another world war. We have looked through our archives and found surprising information regarding the USA and USSR that was never shown to you. Welcome to EHNA. It's 1941. Tomorrow's news today. Though relations between the Soviet Union and the United States have been strained in the previous years before the war, the US-Soviet alliance made this year was marked by a great degree of cooperation. Today, we're going to talk about Operation Barbarossa.
The Soviet Union has been described by Adolf Hitler as his main target. According to him, you only have to kick in the door and the whole rotten structure will come crashing down. On June 22, 1941, he finally delivered the attack he had prepared for so long. 3.6 million soldiers, 3,700 tanks, and 2,500 planes made their way from Germany to the USSR in what will be marked as the largest and most powerful invasion of history, Operation Barbarossa. Not only was the army big, but Germany also counted on the help of Hungary, Finland, and Romania, who also declared war against Russia. Stalin was caught off guard since he refused to believe that Germany would be preparing an attack. Surprisingly, the Russian army outnumbered the German military force. 150 German divisions faced 360 divisions of the Red Army. With the help of the United States, the Soviet Union was able to supply their army with the finest equipment. Stalin prohibited any generals to retreat, bringing many forces to be destroyed or taken as prisoners. By the end of September, over 700,000 casualties were reported. Despite the damage the Germans were able to cause, they didn't in fact move forward in any way, since the Russian army had so greatly outnumbered them. Because of the badly affected plan, the German army was running out of steam, as frontline units halted for resupply and replacements. Winter helped the USSR, since Germans weren't expecting such extreme weather. Germany was so sure that they would have an early victory without a proper war that its army wasn't supplied with winter clothing. 100,000 German soldiers suffered from frostbite, and 2,000 of them underwent amputations. The Soviets won the battle despite major losses in territory, men, and weaponry.
We are here with a Soviet soldier who has insisted on concealing their identity, but has participated in the bloodiest war of contemporary history, the Battle of Stalingrad. Now, what was your most vivid memory?
I remember seeing a corpse on the ground whose skin and fingernails in his right hand had been completely torn off. The eyes had been burnt out, and he had a wound on his left temple made by a red-hot piece of iron. The right half of his face had been covered with flammable liquid and ignited. Then I realized I knew this man. He lived near me. I had seen him before. That shocked me. It could have been me. It could have been my family.
Welcome to EHNA. It's 1941. Tomorrow's news today. Ladies and gentlemen, a horrible atrocity has just happened a few days ago. U.S. forces were victim of a surprise attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy on their naval base at Pearl Harbor. This attack was a drastic action taken by Japan to try to impede the U.S. Pacific Fleet from interfering with their military actions in Southeast Asia. Before the attack, Japan had already taken other drastic decisions, such as the invasion of Manchuria in 1931, where they went against the League of Nations, and the Nanking Massacre. The U.S. stopped the shipment of airplane parts, machine tools, and aviation gasoline to Japan, which made the relation even less friendly. There was a lot of negotiation between the U.S. and Japan to improve their relations, but they never reached an agreement. And on November 26th of this year, the Japanese fleet left their home country headed for Pearl Harbor. The attack was on December 7th. We have an astonishing interview with the survivor of the attack.
The United States wanted more involvement in the war. Roosevelt called for a quarantine on aggressors after Japan invaded China in 1937, yet his words were mostly unsuccessful and ignored. Later, the U.S. took action when war started in Europe and the tensions with Japan increased. In 1940, the German victories over the Dutch and French plus Great Britain's unsteady military position in Europe and in Asia, encouraged the Japanese to project their influence into Southeast Asia, especially Dutch East Indies and the British-controlled Malaya, both of which were centers of rich raw materials. In September 1940, Japanese forces began to occupy French Indochina, and the United States government responded to the situation by freezing Japanese assets in the US, who as a result imposed a complete embargo on oil and were supported by Great Britain, the Commonwealth of Nations, and the independent colonial government of the Dutch East Indies. Yet the economic pressure did not stop Japanese, and they did not accept US demands. The US wanted the renunciation of the Tripartite Pact, and with the withdrawal of Japanese forces from China and Southeast Asia, it left the Japanese with one choice: succumbing to the US or engaging in a war. They chose war. On October 1940, the Defense Minister General Toyo Hideki assumed the office of Prime Minister, and he and his cabinet set in motion plans for the war against Great Britain and the United States. On December 7, 1941, Japanese pilots attacked Pearl Harbor.
Good morning. We are here at Pearl Harbor, where we have encountered various ruins of bombings and plane crashes, as well as dead corpses all over the floor. We are here with an American survivor after the attack, in healthy condition to be interviewed. Now, what exactly happened?
The Japanese wanted to destroy our naval capacity in the Pacific by attacking Pearl Harbor. Apparently, they wanted to clear the way for conquest in Southeast Asia.
Now, what did you exactly experience?
It is as Franklin Delano Roosevelt said, the 7th of December 1941 is a day which will live in infamy. The Japanese pilots took off from 6 aircrafts to Hawaii. More than 350 Japanese bombers, fighters, and torpedo planes struck in 2 waves, sinking or disabling 18 ships and destroying more than 200, all except the U.S. aircraft carriers, which luckily were out of the harbor at that time. But it devastated our American naval power.
Now, what happened after that?
On the 11th of December 1941, Hitler and Mussolini declared war on us. It gave us the only reason we needed to declare war on them. Together with Great Britain and the Soviet Union, we will come together in a coalition that has 2 vast and interconnected theaters of war, the European and Asian Pacific theaters. It will ensure our defeat over Germany and Japan.
Thank you.
The naval battle near the Midway Islands on June 4, 1942, for many people, was a turning point of the Pacific War. The U.S. defeated the Japanese enemy partly because U.S. aircraft carriers had survived the attack in Pearl Harbor. The Americans had few carriers, but they had a code-breaking operation called Magic, their secret weapon. Magic enabled a cryptographer that monitored the Japanese radio frequency, making them able to find out the plan the Japanese had on attacking Midway. On June 4th, the U.S. carriers launched dive bombers that sank 3 Japanese carriers in 5 minutes, and another one later that day. After this, the Allies took the offensive and adopted an island-hopping strategy. They captured islands that were strategically placed, and they could then make a direct air assault on Japan. Islands in the Marianas and the Philippines were retaken by the U.S. and its allies, who, in early 1945, threatened Japan closer in areas like Iwo Jima and Okinawa.
The fall of Saipan in July 1944 and the subsequent conquest of Iwo Jima and Okinawa brought the Japanese homeland within easy reach of U.S. strategic bombers. Because high-altitude strikes in daylight failed to do much damage to industrial sites, military planners changed tactics. The release of napalm firebombs during low-altitude sorties at night met with devastating success. The firebombing of Tokyo in March 1945 destroyed 25% of the city's buildings and annihilated approximately 100,000 people and made more than 1 million homeless. The final blows came on the 6th and the 9th of August 1945, when the United States used its revolutionary new weapon, the atomic bomb, against the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The atomic bombs either instantaneously vaporized or slowly killed by radiation poisoning upward of 200,000 people.
Welcome to EHNA, the neutral newscast station. It's 1945 and there has been a bombing in Dresden, Germany.
British and US bombers have dropped thousands of explosives on the German city of Dresden. The city is reported to be a vital command center for the German defense against Soviet forces approaching from the east. As soon as one part of the city was alight, the bombers went for another until the whole of Dresden was ablaze. Our RAF crew reported smoke rising to a height of 4,572 meters. Another attack followed this morning by the Allied Americans.
Good morning, Eduardo. Today we're going to interview an American pilot that participated in the bombing of Dresden. Good morning. How was the city after the bombing?
There were fires everywhere. It was a terrific concentration in the centers.
That's terrible to hear. How was the atmosphere after the bombing?
As soon as one part of the city was alight, we went to another until the whole of Dresden was ablaze. The city was still alight as me and 311 of our American pilots flew over the city. Our American commander sent 450 B-17 Flying Fortress long-range bombers, which arrived at 12:30 local time. We witnessed fires still ablaze through the night.
Now, under your country's orders, would you do this again?
It was terrible. I won't lie. But I know if I received orders from my country, I wouldn't do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your audience here today at EHNA, the neutral newscast station, where we pick no sides but your side.